But we have to be very careful how we describe it because, of course, everyone loves their children, but there are times that we don't like them very well.
Right.
So today we want to talk about those times, different phases in people's lives when maybe there's something you're going through with a child that you just don't like them very well right now. Have you ever had any times like that?
My children were all perfect, and I just loved them to pieces.
I remember telling my children, I love you, but I just don't like you right now.
Yeah. There's probably things about each one of my children that I didn't like, but two of them in particular, I had some major issues with. Now, keeping in mind that I was still having some major issues myself, especially with my oldest son. I loved him, but I just didn't like him because I didn't know why at the time, but I've found out since it was because he was just like me. And so we were constantly clashing because we were both the type A, driven, I'm going to have my way, don't try to tell me what to do type thing. And I don't care what I cooked for dinner, he didn't like it. And, he was one of the teenagers that rolled his eyes back in his head and slumped in his bed. And, I remember him telling me one time, well, if you wouldn't have been the way you were, I wouldn't be the way I am. And so we had a rough go. I mean, I have to say, when he moved away from home, he went to Florida to go to school to be a missionary, and I was just so glad.
And that's okay to say, right?
Well, yeah.
I mean, there are times that we're struggling with our children. The relationships change in different ways as the children age, and sometimes we need a break.
Well, now he runs our World Missions program, and I can say that I get along great with all my children now. They all love me to pieces. I mean, I would say that there's a lot of days when I talk to every single one of them. My one daughter, which was the one that I had such a hard time with when she was growing up, which I'll tell you about in a minute, first thing she does every morning when she wakes up is call me. A lot of times she'll still be in bed when she calls me. And she was just messy. She was very passive and laid back and hated school and just barely got by. And, I was real neat and tidy. And, I remember those speeches. If you're going to live in my house, you're going to keep this room clean. I remember Dave finally said one time, he said, you tell me the things that you absolutely cannot put up with, and I'll make her do them. Other than that, you have to stop this. Because he said, all you two do is fight all the time. And honestly, we had argued so much by the time she left home, she did not call me or speak to me for 6 months.
Wow.
After she got married.
And now she does every day.
Well, now she actually helps take care of me. This morning I was having a problem with my phone, and she just got in her car and came over and fixed it for me. And she's we're just real close now. And I have 4 children. My oldest son, David, and I had a lot of issues with him when he was growing up. It was challenging, but a lot of it was because he was just like me. And to be honest, I didn't like myself. And I think a lot of times, the child that if you don't like yourself, you're not going to like the child that's like you. And then also the ones that are totally opposite of you. Yeah. That can be an issue too, because you expect them to do things. See, I was neat and tidy, so I expected her to clean up. And I always say when Laura came home from school, you could see a trail. She'd drop her coat, drop her books, half the time she couldn't find things. And but there were good times too. Right. It wasn't like everything was bad. We did things with our kids. I remember when she was in brownies and she'd put on her little brownie outfit and I would take her to brownies. Aww. And, I think especially, and if there's any teenagers watching, please don't be offended, but I think especially when kids are going through the teenage years, they're starting to want their freedom. And that's something God puts in them. They're starting to pull away. They have more opinions. They're quick to give them to you. They're kind of not wanting people to tell them what to do anymore, and you're not finished telling them what to do now. Right. I mean, I remember like her and I having a big argument over bikinis were becoming thing was she wanted a two-piece bathing suit. I told her she could get a two-piece, but it wasn't going to be a bikini, and she found one that I thought was too. I mean, we just had the biggest fight over that.
Yeah.
And but it's all worked out. 6 months after she was married, she came to my house, and she sat down and she said, "You know what? You were right about everything." Oh, that was a wonderful day.
To hear that. Yes.
That was a wonderful day.
But what you're saying, a lot of people want to hide.
Yeah.
Like, we don't ever want anybody to think that we are having any problems with our children or that our relationships aren't perfect.
Right.
And so I think it's great just to bring this up in the open and say, it's okay if there's a phase that is not
There's
going
friction,
exactly
yeah.
like you want it to. Right.
I told my daughter this morning what the content was going to be today. She said, "Well, I know who'll be in that." And they're so good about letting me, because not every relationship is perfect.
Sure, yeah.
I read something in a book the other day, and it just blessed me so much. And I'm actually going to do a teaching on this. It's okay to not be okay. Mm. We don't always have to be feeling loving toward everybody all the time, And I always loved my kids. I never did not love my kids, but there were times when I didn't like them. Now, my youngest daughter, Sandra, she was a perfectionist. And so she suited me pretty well because she tried to do everything just right, However, she had issues too because she would, like, if she made one mistake on a piece of homework, she'd wad it up in a ball and throw it away and start all over again. And so,
so that was hard on her.
We all have our things. And my youngest son, who's the CEO of all the stuff besides the world missions, I mean, he was my baby, first of all. And, I just loved him to pieces, but he was also he's got some type A, but a lot of sanguine, and he just wanted to have fun. He hated school. He's not a book type person. He's more of a hands-on type person. And he amazes me, like he has a gift of wisdom and he can fix almost anything, but he still is not crazy about reading. It's just different people are different. And I think if you want to get along with people, you have to stop trying to make people be what you want them to be. A statement that I heard that I think is very good is you have to learn to love people where they're at, not where you want them to be.
And it's the same for your kids.
Right, same for your kids.
Your kids are people. Sometimes we don't think of them that way.
That's right. I have a book called Teenagers Are People Too.
Yes.
Because I think we think sometimes our kids, just aren't people.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure that, you had, just two girls, but I'm sure that, you had issues, you had challenges at different times.
Yeah, different phases of different things happening in our life. And I remember the first time when our first daughter was 2 years old, and she was the most darling baby. Everything was just perfect. And she hit 2, and I was like, who is this crazy child?
Yeah, right.
And then it's like, I don't know that I want to continue this right now. So, and then you get through that phase, and then it's more difficult as they get older, of course,
right.
And because the problems are just different, and they're bigger problems, and you work through them. But there are times that you have these feelings, right? You always choose to love, but there are times that you have feelings that
you feel like they don't love you.
Exactly. That are more, this is going really well, and then you're feeling like we're just not clicking, we're not connecting, I don't know what's happening. So definitely been through those types
I remember
of things.
Laura telling me one time, "I hate you."
Oh, yeah. That's a hard one.
We laugh about that now, but I tell you, it
Yeah.
wasn't funny that day.
Right.
And I mean, when she got married and moved away from home and didn't call me, I'd cry and tell them she doesn't love me anymore.
Yeah.
and even, as they've been adults, you go through different phases. Like, she has 4 children. So when she was really busy with her children, I rarely ever saw her. And that was a difficult time.
Yeah.
And now, her kids are all grown and married, and so she has lots of time for me.
Right.
And all of my kids are great in different ways, and like every other human being on earth, they all have weaknesses, just like I do, just like you do.
Yeah.
And all I can say is work through it, and things will change. Keep loving people. Just keep loving people. We need to love people. We don't have to like everything they do, but we do need to love them unconditionally. And we need to always let our children know, I don't like what you did, but I love you.
Yeah. Great advice. If you're one of those parents right now who's feeling like, I just don't like them a lot right now, hold on, it will change.
It will get better.